Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, senators are seeking a probe on the killing of 4 soldiers in Sulu. One lawmaker says there's a need to control the excessive use of force and violence by the police. The controversial anti-terrorism bill is now on final review before it reaches the president's table. Supporters say it's about time, while critics appeal to junk the measure. And amid rising COVID-19 cases, the government is standing by its claims that we are winning the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. Senator Risa Hontiveros joins us live. Lawmakers filed a resolution seeking to probe the deadly shooting incident in Sulu, which left 4 Army soldiers dead. One of the resolutions says there is a need to investigate the local police in Sulu and come up with measures against the police's use of excessive force. Also, with the controversial anti-terrorism bill lapsing into law next week, many are waiting if the president will sign, veto, or let it lapse into law. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque earlier said the president is inclined to sign it, and National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon says the president has so far no objections to any provisions in the proposed measure. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Senator Risa Hontiveros. Senator, welcome to the show, and it's good to see you again.
Thank you, Ms. Pinky. Good to see you too.
All right, you filed a resolution seeking, of course, in aid of legislation to look into the shooting of the 4 soldiers by the police in Holo, Sulu. What do you want to find out or discover first, Senator?
Well, first of all, Ms. Pinky, really heartfelt condolences again to the Indamog, Managelod, Velasco, and Asula families, and to the whole Philippine Army and Armed Forces of the Philippines who are mourning these 4 good officers and men. What I hope to find out, Ms. Pinky, in the Senate investigation is also part of seeking the truth and justice for these slain men. As my resolution expresses, it carries the sense that there needs to be some thoroughgoing reforms, most probably in the PNP organization, in order to prevent this still unexplained and almost unexplainable use of excessive force and violence between 2 government institutions, uniformed services, armed services, of our government. An additional casualty in this terrible incident, Ms. Pinky, is unfortunately further trust of the public in the PNP. This is not the first such incident. 2 months ago, PNP personnel shot and killed Winston Ragos, a mentally ill veteran of the Marawi battles, an armed forces personnel at a pandemic, at a quarantine checkpoint here in NCR. So itong dalawang mga insidente magkasunod, not too far apart, seem to show a disturbing pattern of behavior that we should not expect from our national police institution, and also not between 2 institutions of the government.
I want to zero in on what you said on excessive force, Senator Risa. Ano po, bakit po ninyo inilarawan ito na excessive force?
I describe this as an incident of excessive force and violence, Ms. Pinky, because all 4 of the Army personnel, after they had already spoken with the PNP on the ground, identified themselves, and as shown in the CCTV, the commanding officer, Major Indamog, had come out with his hands up. That's also according to the AFP report. Captain Managelod was still inside the vehicle working on his laptop. And then plus the two other men, ni isa sa apat nila reportedly ni hindi nagbarel, did not discharge their firearms. And then after the killings had been done, inexplicably also, umalis na lang sa eksena yung mga PNP personnel without even calling for SOCO operatives to come onto the scene, which is a standard operating procedure kapag may napatay under any circumstances. And yet, that is not what happened. And I am hoping, Ms. Pinky, that with the ongoing NBI investigation and especially the hope for Senate hearing, that more of the truth and as much as we can, the complete truth can come out about the circumstances of that terrible day. Because in any modern rules-based law enforcement, lagi nilang pinag-uusapan yung appropriate use of force, di ba? Kasi sila ang mga institusyon na may karapatan to bear arms and to use them in defense of public safety on the part of the PNP and in defense of external defense on the part of the AFP. Parang hinding-hindi yung nangyari dito on the part of the PNP at naging biktima itong apat na taga-army, no, mga opisyal at mga personnel.
Senator Risa, the latest report from the National Bureau of Investigation actually states that because they were able to autopsy 3 of the soldiers, yung pong lumabas, isa pong sundalo was shot 8 times. I believe this is Asula. And Asula is the driver of the vehicle, if I'm not mistaken. 8 times shot. The other 2 were shot 3 times. What does this indicate to you? What are your thoughts when you hear that one was shot 8 times and the other 2 3 times?
Well, as a civilian, Miss Pinky, it makes me think if none of the 4 even fired their firearms once, as according to the AFP report, bakit naman sila ay binaril ng paulit-ulit pa? No? So it really boggles the imagination. Paano ito nangyari at bakit sa ganyang paraan pinatay yung mga tao, yung mga army officers and personnel. So we really need to investigate deeply to understand the truth of what happened para bigyan ng katarungan yung mga pinatay at yung kanilang mga pamilya at yung kanilang institusyon. And at the same time, to prevent this from ever happening again. Kasi nga parang nag-emerge ang isang disturbing pattern following on the Ragos case, which should never have emerged and which should be stopped now once and for all for the sake of the public and for the sake of the PNP itself as an institution. Kailangan nating ibalik ang tiwala ng publiko sa mga institusyon.
Senator, palagay niyo ho ba in your mind, because naaalala nga din yung nangyari nga kay Winston Ragos, because this happened a few months before this incident last Monday, I believe. Do you think that this could possibly just have been an honest mistake? Could it have been poor coordination? Or was there a deeper motive in this killing?
If there was a deeper motive, we should certainly have to uncover it and place it along the facts of the truth of this terrible incident and place that deeper motive among the recommendations, not just findings, but recommendations we should make to address such deeper motives, which should have no place in modern rules-based law enforcement and should have no place in the armed forces being able to conduct their legitimate duties, no, under our Constitution. Kung simpleng coordination problem lang ito, kung simpleng aksidente lang ito, those will have to be placed under the microscope of the investigations. Napakahirap lang talagang paniwalaan sa ngayon, Ms. Pinky. I mean, just from one angle, kung aksidente lang ito or isang terribleng mistake, bakit hindi kaagad tinawag ang SOCO to get to the scene of the killings and to gather immediately all the evidence which should communicate clearly to the public the truth about what happened.
When you talk about legislation, Senator Risa, sinabi po ni Senator Ping Lacson ito, he said that he supports this. However, more than that, he says, and I quote, the proponent of the resolution must at least state what kind of legislation we need to pass, among others, out of the Holo incident. Could you answer that? What kind of legislation do you need to pass?
I really appreciate yung sinabing iyon ni National Defense Committee Chair Senator Ping, yung kanilang kahandaan. He has always fulfilled his legislative duty, and I am certain, I have full faith he will do the same as far as my resolution is concerned sa kanilang komite. At alam din ni Chair Senator Ping na in aid of legislation, at the very least, we must exercise oversight kung, for example, tinupad ng kompleto at maayos ng PNP personnel sa insidenteng ito yung sarili nilang rules of engagement when conducting law enforcement operations. Further than that, and dahil dating, in fact, sila yung unang-unang Chief PNP natin, si Senator Ping, I look forward na in aid of restoring the trust of the public in the PNP as an institution, na posibleng may ilabas kaming findings and recommendations kaugnay ng hindi lang yung recruitment ng mga potential PNP personnel and officers who have the knowledge or the capacity to learn the knowledge, to develop the skills for modern rules-based policing or law enforcement, pero may tamang orientasyon para yung buong institusyon ay magkaroon ng tamang orientasyon in terms of law enforcement, especially in these very conflictual times, Ms. Pinky.
We're going to talk about the anti-terrorism bill and the government's fight against COVID-19, and of course the issue on ABS-CBN. After the break, Senator Risa Hontiveros will be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Senator Risa Hontiveros, the anti-terrorism bill. Senator, the president may sign this, veto, or allow this to lapse into law. I believe this will happen on July 9. I wanted to ask you, do you even think that there's a chance the president might veto this bill or veto parts of this particular bill?
Well, Pinky, while there's life, there's hope. One of those three possible scenarios is actually na i-veto nila. And I really hope government vetoes the bill. Again, the public needs to regain complete trust that government is first and foremost and urgently addressing the pandemic, the health crisis, addressing the economic crisis, also brought on by our necessary quarantines, instead of prioritizing consolidating its power.
You know, that question has been asked so many times, Senator, questioning the timing of this bill.
Yes.
And when you ask those who are supporting this bill, even the senators are saying, number one, the Senate passed this in February. Of course, you, except for, you didn't sign this together with, I believe, Senator Kiko Pangilinan. But
Yes.
This has been, they say, 3 years in the making, passed by the Senate in February. So when you ask them about timing, it's as if hindi naman minadali dahil nandyan na talaga yan.
Well, yeah, in fairness, Pinky, yes, the Senate passed its version months before the House adopted our version, months before pala na sinertify as urgent ni Presidente. And precisely timing, that's the issue I have been hammering at from the start, kung bakit sa gitna ng pandemic, sa gitna ng economic sufferings ng ating mga kababayan sa ilalim ng quarantines, bakit biglang sinertify as urgent itong bill na ito? Sa halip na to attend more urgently, and there's a lot more improvement we can make, attend more urgently to really flattening the curve of the pandemic, attend more urgently to passing our relief and stimulus package bills para saluhin yung mga taong nawawalan ng trabaho at hanap buhay. And this remains the first main reason behind my hope I hope still that the president may veto this bill at this time and
Mhm.
attend more urgently to the health and economic needs of our people.
You know, Senator, there's so much to talk about with
Mhm.
regards to this bill. And as I mentioned a while ago, you did not sign it. They're supposed to be
Yes.
controversial or contentious parts for critics of this anti-terrorism bill. You have the
Mm.
Anti-Terrorism Council, you have the detention, you have the surveillance, etc. But if I were to ask you, which part of this anti-terrorism bill are you most concerned about?
Of the top three issues in my mind, Pinky, which were not addressed until the period of amendments in the Senate, yung pinaka nakakabahala talaga sa akin is fundamental. Ito yung masyadong pinalawak na definisyon ng terorismo. Way beyond what's in the Human Security Act, what was there, the HSA of 2007, and way beyond yung commonsensical understanding din ng lahat natin kung ano yung terorismo, no? Yung paggamit ng karahasan para pumatay, para magwasak ng property with the aim of terrorizing, scaring the
Mm-mm.
public, and forcing government to act against its better judgment. Masyadong pinalawak na mula doon. All of us are against terrorist actions. And it is the duty of government to secure people's safety against terrorist actions, but not with this overly broad, uh, vague, and subject to interpretation definition na pati mga intention at sino
Mm-mm.
magsusukat, magtitimbang ng intention, pati mga threat, pati mga yung
Intent.
incitement, who will
Mm-mm.
define incitement? An anti-terrorism council composed of appointees of the office of the president. So it opens up a Pandora's box, lalo na sa context of Pinky, of the overly heavy-handed style of governance, even during this pandemic, which response has been more force and arms heavy than seeking to increase health visibility, for example.
If we had a different administration, just for the sake of argument, Senator Risa, and the bill stays as it is, would you consider it, or would your stand still be the same?
I'm so glad someone finally asked me that question, Pinky. You know, naisip ko rin talaga, kahit pa nakaraang administrasyon pa ito, which I was an ally of, even if it were still the
Right.
Noynoy Aquino administration, I would still have voted against the bill. Kasi tingin ko, yung Human Security Act, sapat na kung properly lamang amyendahan, but not to the point na kinocontemplate nitong kasalukuyang anti-terrorism bill. Dagdag na dahilan na lamang na it would become an additional tool in the hands of a current administration na masyadong madaling default, no? Yung iron-fisted approaches to governance, even to health governance. At marami ng human rights issues na nakasampa sa kanya, both domestically and even internationally. But yes, even if it had been the best of administrations, I would have voted against it. Sabi ko nga nung explanation of no vote ko, na although I trust our Senate main sponsor, because I have, may I say, no, Pinky, disclaimer, I love Sen Ping. Naging boss siya nung late husband ko sa PNP, of course, many levels above my late husband. And I've worked with Sen Ping on, yes, human rights
Mm-mm.
legislation in the past several years, specifically yung pag-reinstate at pagdepensa ng budget ng Commission on Human Rights. Sen Ping actually has led that in the past several years. But even with the person you love, even with the person you trust, sabi ko nga sa explanation of no vote ko, we always legislate with the possibility of worst administrations in mind, not presuming best administrations.
Mm-mm.
No?
Mm-mm.
Kung yung main sponsor
Mm-mm.
lang namin, I could trust. But
Parang,
even,
yeah.
parang,
Yeah, parang you're saying,
yes, thank you.
Senator Risa, no, you have to look at the worst case scenario. Ganun ho
Yes.
ba yun? When crafting a law. Dapat naiisip mo na yung pinaka-posibleng malalang mangyari para ma-plug nyo yung loopholes o maayos nyo yung posibleng problema kapag dumating sa worst case scenario.
Exactly. We could have amended the Human Security Act kung gusto talaga ng mga proponents more properly. Hindi katulad dito sa current anti-terrorism bill na sobrang lumampas sa tingin ko at sa tingin ng dumadaming nananawagan na i-veto ito. Lumampas pati sa mga constitutional safeguards, no? Sa civil liberties at sa karapatang pantao ng mga mamamayan.
Yeah, we need to shift topics already because we need to talk about COVID. You've been talking about this a while ago. Latest number, Senators, 38,805. We had less than 300 cases yesterday from an average the 2 days before that of about more or less 900 or 1,000. The DOH already said that yung data kasi na kinokollect nila kahapon is only 19 hours compared to 24 hours. Possibly that's why medyo mababa. With everything that's happened, Senator Risa, I want to move forward. Tests arriving, sabi ni Secretary Vince, 1 million. COVID labs, dumami na po. Are we in the right direction? Are we gearing towards the right direction?
I think, Pinky, from day one, we have been turning our national body in the right direction, and it rather small steps, slowly moving forward in the right direction. Pero hindi pa rin natin makiklaim that we are already necessarily winning the fight against COVID-19. And speaking of fight, this COVID-19 remains primarily a health crisis, a pandemic. So hindi ito nangangailangan ng militarization. We still need, I sound like a broken record here, but even now that thankfully we are increasing our capacity for testing, but we still need to do the basic steps. Hindi pa tayo maabot sa mass testing. Based on the mass testing where we get the honest data, then we continue to do the contact tracing, wider contact tracing, more effective isolation and treatment. Kailangan pa nating protektahan yung ating mga health frontliners. We're doing a bit better there, but many are still saying they lack or they don't have, for example, the personal protective equipment. We need to raise the line of our public health system, really capacitate our hospitals, at kailangan nating patuloy na makipag-coordinate sa ating mga local government units. Not like at the beginning telling them to stand down, just toe the national line, but really coordinate with them. Lalo na because, as you said, Pinky, moving forward, until, say, the next 1.5 years na meron ng vaccine, meron ng mas foolproof na cures, it's really our LGUs who are learning and who will have to learn the health governance on the ground. Kasi sila rin yung magsasabi, oops, meron na naman tayong community transmission dito, so we have to put in place for a certain time yung mga localized community quarantine. So first of all, we have to be honest, honest about the data. Let's get the data once and for all, and then let's be honest about it, and so that we can effectively move forward to really winning this fight against COVID-19.
Well, at least as Secretary Roque was saying, Senator Risa, we beat the UP prediction. He congratulated us for not making it to the 40,000 prediction. And he clarified this just for context yesterday na sinasabi niya hindi naman daw kalaban ang UP, ang kalaban ng COVID.
Well, look at the body language, masyadong tuwang-tuwa na hindi daw umabot sa eksaktong 40,000, sasabihin ba nila 38,000 lang? But given that hindi pa nga tayo nagma-mass testing, it's really possible, even probable, na under-diagnosed pa yung 38,000. So that is not yet something to cheer about. We still have to complete step 1, which is plain and simply over and over mass testing. Kasi sa mass testing lamang natin malalaman.
Okay.
And no matter how dire the numbers, we have to find out that number so we can move forward to winning against COVID-19.
Again, we need to take a very short break. We'll be right back. Senator, we only have one question left before we say goodbye. This is going to be about ABS-CBN. Wala na pong ABS-CBN, wala na pong teleradyo. Very recently, walang Channel 43, walang TV Plus, wala pong Sky Direct. How do you think, what are your thoughts on how the hearings are actually proceeding at the House of Representatives?
Well, Maybe just to wrap up all our conversation so far, government, including our counterparts in the House, should really focus on our COVID-19 response and on saving the pre-pandemic jobs, saving the MSMEs, and laying the groundwork for stimulating the economy and responding long-term to our health needs, rather than closing down a major network, rather than further laying people off from their jobs, and rather than further cutting off Filipinos from a major source of news and information, knowledge about how to survive this pandemic and how to survive the looming economic recession. So I hope that our counterparts in the House and all of government, they all like to say whole of government approach, will see that in fact government needs to get out of the way of the renewal of the franchise of ABS-CBN, rather than bearing down on it, stepping on it when government is already forcing it to its knees.
If I were to ask you one word to describe the proceedings at the House, what would it be?
Hoping for much more, Pinky. Hoping for much more.
All right. Senator Risa Hontiveros, ma'am, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras and always take care. Thank you.
Mabuhay kayo. Stay healthy. Ingat.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.